So we kind of went from a many-to-many relation here, but we cannot do that in a relational database because how would we do it in the rows? Think about that. How would you actually add an address row multiple times with a customer ID? It would be weird. So instead we added this new table to kind of map this properly in the relational database. And what we did is we made a one-to-many and a one-to-many relation right here. And that should actually fix the problem. But now we need the customer address object in our database to actually make this work. So let's try and just add that right now. And again, all you have to understand right now is that this customer address is going to have a key right here, a primary key that's going to be a combination of these two. So it has to be unique address and customer ID bound together. You cannot have the same address ID and customer ID multiple times. That's why I'm going to make this a primary key. Good. We're not going to talk more about the relational databases right now. I'm going to show you guys just where I'm going to grab the example from, because this is not, I'm going to use something Microsoft already built for us. I'm going to have a look at that and explain that to you. They're using something inside the Entity framework here. Here's the link, by the way, if you want it. I'll also put in the description. If you go down here, you'll find something called relationships. There we go. And when you click that one, you'll actually go down a little bit and say most of the samples in here are actually one-to-many relationships. If you want to know more, go to other relationship patterns. I'll click that one. When I get into that one, there's one-to-one. That's not what we're going to build, but you can have a look at that as well if you need it. We're going to build this many-to-many relation that's down here, many-to-many. And again, it shows that you need this new post tag in their case, or customer address in our case, to actually bind these two together. So that's what we're going to do. Awesome. Good. So let's try and jump into the code and just get our customer address out of the way. So I'm in the code, and here I'm going to just add a new entity right here. I'm going to say add new class, right click to entities, add new class, and I'm going to call it customer address. And again, it's very important you put in the same name just so that our diagram is not outdated already. So that's why I'm putting in the name customer address. And then I need to kind of make the public the two keys that will combine this, and that is two properties. The first property is going to be the customer ID. That's the key from one side of my diagram, right? And the second property is going to be the address key, address ID, right, to bind the other side of my customer address thing here. So there we go. Now we kind of have the relation so that we can make this many-to-one instead of a many-to-many. I know this is complex, but you just have to learn it. That's just how it is. That's how it is. Now the cool thing is, because even though the core framework is not completely ready for many-to-many relations yet, which is cool for us because this is learning how many-to-many works instead of just putting in a few lines of text and everything just runs bloof out of the box. You're actually learning many-to-many relations right here. Now the cool thing is they actually made something called the Fluent API that we're going to use the next lesson to kind of bind these guys together. So it's very important for me to explain two things for you. First of all, I'm not going to add a new DB set here. There's not going to be a database set or table in here in the code that kind of says we're going to have a new customer address table. I'm not going to add that. That's one thing. I'm not going to add a new customer address repository, because from the outside of the data access layer, you don't know that this table exists. This is only for a relational database, so you shouldn't have to care about this existing in the business logic layer or anywhere else, right? So this is just for the entity framework. That's the only reason, or for a relational database, that's the only reason I need this. So I'm going to keep this encapsulated inside the context using something called the Fluent API that they built for us to kind of map these things together by writing some pretty cool commands that are pretty easy to read and understand when you understand a relational database, right? So you have to start wrapping your head around a relational database in the next lesson. Yay, relational databases! See you next time. Let's try and make something with the Fluent API. Have fun.